I come from a time when the internet was, I don't want to say in its absolute infancy, but I want to say the complexity of computers was still being, can I say planned? I sincerely don't know because my memories of those times are vague. I just remember that when I first used a computer for the first time, it could do very basic things. Things like you could play very linear games. You could use it as a very basic, simple calculator. You could design things with that one app called Paint that I was surprised to discover decades later that a lot of people actually could draw with it properly. For me, everything looked crooked because, of course, I didn't really have a concept of what it's like to observe the screen as a grid. You ever use a word processor and you can adjust the margin of the page, and it has like those sliders that look like a ruler and stuff. Of course, that's supposed to help you visualize what the hard copy of what you're writing is going to look like, but you still have to understand how to think of that scale while you're using that computer, because the computer screen won't change, but maybe the size of the text in it will change, but it's not like you can have a better aerial view, I guess, of what the printed media is going to look like. It is a language that you have to develop. And it wasn't until maybe my senior year in high school that I became a little better at it. But anyway, basically, to me, the meaning of a computer was to type things. If I need to write something, get it done faster, to save on paper, and to access information that still required some digging. For instance, I remember researching for a science project, and it required that I use some sciencey websites, the reputable ones. And I feel like back in those days, there really wasn't a lot of questions about which sources would be reputable. Those kinds of details. Now I feel like in the present, we keep, like always, pushing to see what it is that we can do, what computers can do, keep enhancing what, in my opinion, doesn't need any further enhancement, because I feel like the enhancements that you keep incorporating simply make the device feel more complex, and it makes it harder to get things done because you're distracted in that stage of exploring what the new tools are. And I think one of the things I'm a little sad by is how I feel like computers are supposed to be helping us be more productive, and in a lot of ways they are. But I also feel like we are never going to be fully done with work, fully happy with it, because you keep thinking about the many ways that you could have taken something and changed it and twisted it, and be like, nah, I could have made this brighter, I could have made this be shinier, or maybe I could produce this version of it for this season, but then next season I'll know what I'll change, something like that. I feel like it used to be, it could help you establish an image that you embrace and you stick to that style for some time. And maybe until a decade has passed or so, maybe that's when you feel compelled to change your style again, because understandably, a decade is a reasonable amount of time to where events that can shape you can happen, and that may help you rediscover some things about yourself or evolve some things artistically speaking. But now I feel like you don't indulge in your seasons for very long at all, because you have to keep up with trends and continuously outperform what you may have produced. And that keeps this crazy pressure on you to the point that I don't know about you guys, but I sincerely cannot say that I remember 2021. I don't remember anything definitive, anything distinguishing about the whole year outside of lockdowns, which is fine. I think collectively we share that, especially spring 2020. That was insane. But I'm talking about you as an individual, what you went through, what you can recall outside of that event that you have a collective memory with others. I cannot tell you about any kind of incidents at all. I cannot tell you about what my projects were at the time. I want to be able to remember one video title, one topic specifically that I was doing in 2021. I'm just picking 2021 randomly. And I cannot tell you. I obviously could, because I'm the sole manager of this channel and I'm personally invested in everything that you see happening on my channel I have done on my own. And I think the only time I had assistance, it was that mutual stream I did with someone. The other person, I guess, initiated the stream because they had the tools to do so, and all I did was be present, but it was all being transmitted into my channel. That was very long ago. And I want to say that happened in the year 2018 or 2019. I can tell you about those times. But I'm just saying that I feel like computers are great, but they also can get in the way a lot. And I still prefer to make my notes by using pen and paper. I still prefer to write things down in an agenda that I have designated, that I have designed. And I find that electronics are cool when you're on the go. I've never been someone as an adult to be physically walking around with a notebook. I prefer to either leave it in the car or have it at home and I'll glance at it, memorize what's in there, and then go out and take care of it. Or I'll take it with me to have it in the car if my day is going to be pretty busy. Then, of course, to not weigh my mind down, I'm not going to be carrying around this giant notebook. But I'm just saying that I feel like computers are being a little intrusive in my productivity as an adult. And I think that they are useful in awesome ways, such as I don't have to unnecessarily visit and stand in some line in an edifice to pay my utilities. I remember my mom doing that when I was a kid. I don't know, you guys, I'm at a conflict. I feel like I have a pretty good hold on technology. I know what works for me, I know how to keep it from getting in my way. But I feel like when it becomes unavoidable in places that I didn't expect it would be so present, like say when I go out shopping or when I go order at a restaurant, I remember the days when obligatory you had to interact with someone, and now it's like I gotta interact with a kiosk. Something about that, it just makes me feel like I'm alienated. If I'm going to alienate, let it be because I'm online ordering, but then I still have to make a connection with a person because I have to show up, go to a counter, and request my food. But when it's thrown into some shelf, as a worker, I can understand that throwing it on a shelf and the customer just picks it up and they don't address me at all, it can help me stay focused and not experience an interruption. But interacting with someone to greet them and point them into the right direction is not really a burden. But I think that it's aided productivity, but I think it has made us unproductive with our social skills. And sometimes I feel like as a worker, sometimes I want to establish that boundary, that same boundary that I experience of, well, when I do something online, maybe I'm trying to avoid face to face interactions, but sometimes I feel like when you deal with customers who depend heavily on online things, you notice that the way you communicate with them is different. Sometimes it's harder because maybe they're still thinking in I'm in online mode, but you're out here addressing them in real life mode and they just do not know how to function. That is the area that I'm at a conflict with. I don't want to get to a point where I'm relying on my phone or my computer so much that I somehow become detached from reality and I don't know how to express thoughts in a way that makes sense. And I'm telling you, and it is no joke, customer service, I see that a lot. Like some people, they just show up and it's always been like this, but I feel like it's more intense now. They feel like with very little context, very little detail, very little specifications, you're just a magician who can figure out what it is that they're, without enough context and without proper words, you can just figure it out. And sometimes we can, but other times it's just extreme. They'll just show up and they have something that doesn't have any labels on it, anything, and it's like you have to get the information out of them. They don't show up to you going like, this is a return, or they don't say something like, this is something that I peeled the front of, but here's the barcode. Please scan it. I started eating it ahead before paying. No, it's these people, they just turn up and say if I start charging them for something, but it turns out to be a return, they get all upset. And I'm like, okay, I guess it was my fault for not asking, but I feel like I shouldn't have to ask. Maybe if you're coming over to me to get my service, you ought to let me know what the purpose of your visit is. So if you have something that is an object that has many possible interpretations, as opposed to letting me guess or as opposed to expecting for me to ask you, just go ahead and tell me that you're trying to perform a return on a register that doesn't do returns. I don't expect you to 100% know that or understand that, but you know that at this location, if you're a regular, you've never gone to another lane and done that. So why would you skip the desk and come over to a cashier who just rang up a $700 order? But anyways, you guys, again, that's just me. I just wish that people made an effort to be more self-aware and see how your behavior is changing. If someone points it out to you, don't be offended. And I think that because phones and computers can do so much now, the simplicity that I miss from the time that I was a kid and growing up with computers when they were still somewhat in, I don't want to say their infancy because computers have been around for a long time now, but the extent to which they can do things and how they're in our homes now so easily. Back in my day, computers were stupid expensive. And even then, we still really didn't know how to use the computer to its max extent for whatever you could get as a regular consumer. Like, nobody knows these things, of course. Like, it's not like we were going to school and all of our classes were revolving around computers, but I feel like computers had a degree of being very intuitive. But now you just really need to know what you're doing because there are some things on the screen that, because of the design principles, you may not even recognize it's a button that you can click and interact with. That's where the, I guess, feeling of computers not being so intuitive anymore comes from. Aesthetics has plagued computers to where some things is just not obvious anymore. What do you guys have it? That's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was just something that I wanted to kind of let out. I won't get tired of saying this. I think our over reliance on computers is a disaster that is waiting to get bigger. I think it's already happening, but I'm just saying it's waiting to get bigger and worse and out of control. And I just wonder, the leaders of our homes and communities and everywhere that you go, is there any way that you can do something about this? Or do you not think that it really is that big of a deal and that big of a problem? I don't know. I think in some areas we may be too far gone, and you would have to have a generation be born that's completely under control and they have their exposure to these things modeled in a perfectly healthy way to undo the damage that those of us who are here already suffering from this are doing. But I know that it's not everybody. There's always a member in every generation that's doing fine. But I'm just saying that I feel like encountering a person who is doing fine is rarer than the person who's too consumed by this. Okay, that's it. Bye.